Hello?
Hello, hello. How you doing, dude?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm I'm doing pretty good. Doing great.
All right.
Uh
Sounds pretty. Feels pretty surreal talking to the person that I've been watching on YouTube, man.
yeah, fuck yeah. That's awesome, man. Thank you for watching it first of all. And dude, thank you so much for doing a coaching lesson. I appreciate it.
No, I'm pretty happy. I mean, eh, watching the series has been great, and it's kind of like a small token to thank you as well. So, it's pretty awesome.
Yo, that's
So it's.
nice, man. Um well, dude, welcome to the first coaching lesson and just for the sake of the VOD and that I'll just be uploading later. I guess just really quickly, you don't have to go super into detail, but just give me a quick rundown of race, league, and general idea for something you want to work on today.
Okay. Um, right now I'm at Platinum 1, Plat 1,
Okay.
and I play Protoss. And I've actually I played StarCraft 1 way back then, when it basically came out,
Sure.
like in the 99 and stuff.
Oh, damn.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I played until StarCraft 2 came out, and I tried StarCraft 2 back in 2010, and for some reason it just didn't click. I didn't like it or whatever, and then after that, life happened, and I stopped playing altogether. And earlier this year, a little nephew that I have, he said, "Hey, we're playing StarCraft, and it's free." I'm like, "Really?"
He brought you
So
back.
I went, yeah, he brought me back, and I went online. I was like, "Oh man, it is really for free." So I downloaded it, and then I started playing again. Well, really for the first time, StarCraft 2 in April, when the whole lockdown thing happened and all that stuff. So we were
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like playing there, and so I started playing. Then I got my buddy that used to play the StarCraft with. We used to do a lot of 2v2s back then, and played a few tournaments and stuff. Um,
Oh,
and he got into it as
yeah.
well. So we've just been playing since the pandemic started, really, and this is where I am right now, and I'm very excited to be able to be here with you. And I guess in regards to as to what I wanna focus on is I do have a lot of questions. I mean,
Sure.
the questions really are endless.
It's okay. I'll try to answer as many
Um,
as possible.
but it really, one of the biggest one was like, okay, I've done competitive sports in my lifetime, and when I'm with a coach and we're training and we're practicing, it's very specific as to the things that I need to work on. If it's fitness, well, I'm just gonna go and do fitness, and then I'm trying to kind of like uh, draw an analogy between that and playing StarCraft. And fitness wise, I kind of equate that with like maybe mechanics, because it's something that is repetitive and you
Mm-hmm.
have to like just practice over and over and over. But then I mean, there's a point where StarCraft just becomes kind of like you know very mind-boggling. I'm like, man, what should I do? Like what can I focus on? It's so like in some ways obscure. So I joined a clan, and they shed a little bit of light, and they showed me the LOTV unit tester, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I can try out different things in there. And then I also tried out the salt, build, practice. It'll tell you how to, I guess, follow a build and things like that. And that was around when I was in gold 2, gold 1, and then that progressed me through platinum. And then watching the GSL tournaments and things like that, I would pick up maybe a build from parting and things like that. and
Yeah.
and and then that took me through another level of platinum. Maybe I was plat 3, and then I was like, oh man, this like for warp gate, blink stalker build was pretty cool when he beat Mara with it. And then I picked it up, and then that really got me through between plat 3 to plat 1. That's really what carried me through there. That was like the
Okay.
build that I was like doing over and over and over and over,
Yeah.
until Ty started the whole like we don't mind drop thing, and then that build kind of like showed where the biggest weakness was, because as soon as you're attacking them, they'll just we don't mind drop you, and your economy is all gone.
Yeah. No, for sure. I would say I see where you're going with this, and I would definitely say it's a good idea to look at outside sources other than your own games, like a pro player or a streamer, just for ideas on how they're playing the game and like seeing how like like what, for instance, like the meta looks like for people. But I would say for you, that would probably be something you would be able to have a better time executing yourself if you were in Masters or Diamond. So like if we're gonna relate back all the way to what you were talking about earlier, where you're talking about like how to correlate this coaching lesson to like something you've done before, where with competitive activities like sports and shit, like traditional sports, it would be. I agree with you when you said your mechanics are what you need to focus on, and specifically it needs to be your macro. Like we can obviously talk about a lot of stuff. It doesn't just have to be a simple "this is how you macro" lesson. We can talk a lot about like how to break down what people are doing, how to read people's builds, how to do a build yourself that is something that's higher level so you can grow into it or something like that. But yeah, for sure, it's gonna definitely be. If I see there are weaknesses in your play that are like, okay, well, you're missing things here, you're missing things there, you're missing things here, and you can't actually do the build properly, that's definitely the kind of shit you need to fix first before you focus on, like full on playing like partying essentially, or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And no, and really what happened is that once I got to plat 1, I felt, and this was before I heard about you and the channel and everything.
Sure.
I felt like I was hitting a wall, because I was like, man, this is just not working. I'm not able to progress, and I felt that because every time the games went into macro, or the long games, mid game and then long games, I was like, okay, I'm gonna die. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way I can keep this up. And until I started watching your channel, and I was like, oh, it's like, it was really like mind opening. I was like, darn, that's making sense.
Yeah, cool. All right, so I guess the way we can kind of start this off, if you want to, is the replays you send me, are those replays of the things that you're trying to like incorporate those into your play more, and you're trying to I guess perfect those?
Right. What I have been doing is really just focusing every single game. I basically try to focus on the macro, and following a lot of the things that you've been going over your videos, from the B to GM series. I know that you said that there's some updates, because those are from last year, and we're already at 2020,
Sure.
almost 21. But I mean, I played like 8 games yesterday, and the funny thing is that from the 8, I only lost 1. So I was like, oh man, I thought I was gonna lose more.
Yeah.
It was hilarious, and I was like just doing the whole macro and like very methodical, I guess, and checking and scouting, and it still doesn't make a lot. It's not obvious to me still when I get to their base, and whether I'm looking at how much gas they have used, and trying to anticipate what are they going to go for, depending on whether they have 1 gas or 2 gases, or their barracks just finished that very second. As one of the replays I sent you, I got ult in, and I looked at their side of the map, and I was like, okay, why does he not have any gas? Why is he not taking any gas? And I was like, it feels like something's up, but by that time it was already too late, because I had like 12 Marines at my door.
Yeah.
Like, 2 stalkers.
All right, so I have an idea how we can do it then. If you'd like, we can go through. I would say if you want to focus on like PvT, for instance, we could focus on that, and like it could be any matchup you want though. It doesn't have to be PvT.
Yeah.
We could look at something that maybe like I could help you with an all-in like how to read a build better. So we could definitely look at the all-in game and talk about how to actually what to look for and how to understand it. And then we could talk about another one where if you have like a generalized version of your gameplay where it's like an average game you just play where, you know, this is your standard macro game. I could look at it and I could help you fix holes in your build that make no sense or that like maybe they're like deviating from what it should be. And I can help you clean it up to where it'll be more efficient for you. And it'll still be your flavor of play. It'll still be whatever you specifically want to play as. It doesn't have to be something I tell you to do, right? Also, I'll just help you create, or I'll help you like superpower your playstyle essentially.
Okay. There is one game, I think one of the ones I sent you to, where I won the game, but there was a point where I have no idea how I actually won.
Yeah, we can look at it.
It was weird like that. I was like, wait, I actually won? Like, okay, sure, I'll take it, right? But, but I felt, you know, at a point in time where I was like, oh man, I think I'm gonna lose, and then I like ended up winning. But we can, I guess, watch those.
Yeah. So just so we'll get into a party really fast. So right now, are you already on BattleNet? Are you already logged in? Okay, yes. So just left click on your portrait in top right for your profile. And then you can click ladders on the left side, and then in the same spot you get Grandmaster, and then right now I'm currently rank 154. Yeah, I'm rank 154, and then you can just send me a message that way, and then we can just start a party.
154. Root vibe, right?
Yep. Yeah. That's me.
Alright, I just sent you a friend request. Or you said message, right?
Yeah, just because I can't. There you go, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, and then now I'm going to make you lead, and then now just hit replays now, and then do whatever replay you wanted to look at. Just do watch with others.
Yeah.
And then, so I'll let you just choose what replay you are most interested in.
Got it.
And then
I guess we'll go first in that all-in that I got.
Okay, that sounds good.
That happened. Let me just find it.
And then don't start it right away when you get it. Just before you start it, when we're actually in the lobby, just make me the lobby host. That way I can mess around with the timer.
Right. Okay, I got here. This is the all-in one.
Okay.
And then
lobby host, and then we're good to go.
Lobby host.
You just gotta if you right click my name, you'll see it. There you go. Perfect. Okay. Good shit.
Yeah.
All right, dude. So let's talk about how to defend all-ins. Let's see what you're looking at.
And I saw all the all-ins that you've been through the series, and that has helped a lot as well.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes I guess I'm not expecting that.
Yeah, no, like especially with this too, your opponent's random this game as well. He ended up being Terran. It just makes it more annoying for you. I
really find that annoying.
Yeah. I would say just to make it so this is my opinion, okay, of where to put stuff. In ZVZ or in Protoss versus Zerg, I think putting your wall in front of your natural is nice, so you can cover your natural and you can expand properly. I think in Protoss versus Protoss, I think it's nice to put a wall on the top of your ramp in your main, so you can, you know, cover your ramp. It's in case he tries to adept harass you or something like that. And then in Protoss versus Terran, I like putting my pylon on the side of my mineral line behind my main, or like my gas, so you can like make a wall from the resources to the wall to the resources. So if a Reaper were to run around your base, it would get trapped.
Right.
But if it's random,
I have a question about that.
Sure, go ahead.
Because I have seen a lot of people do that wall between the gas and the edge of the map, I guess. But then I also see when you build the wall at the jump line.
I don't do that anymore.
Oh, you don't do that anymore?
The reason why I used to do it for scouting, to prevent scouting, and it would just fuck the Reaper over and make the Reaper have to come a different way. But tank timing meta, like there's like a meta for Terran where a lot of Terrans like to do tank timings. And if all of your production is on the fucking cliff, like your core, your gate, your pylon, early on in the game, it's really hard to defend it, and it's fucking annoying.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just stopped doing it, and I put it now on the side of my main, or the side of my mineral lines and shit, and the gases now. But if it's random, I highly recommend you just put a wall on the top of your ramp, just like how you do in Protoss versus Protoss, because it's like something you can work with in every matchup. Because if Zerg early pulls you or does some cheesy all in, you have a ramp to defend and it's super easy. If it's a Terran, you don't have as easy of a Reaper defense as before, but at least now you can prevent like Hellions from running in your main or something like that. And then if it's PvP, then wonderful. It just increases your odds to not have a fucked up game. Because if it was Protoss and you don't have your wall there and you get like adept pressured, it's just gonna suck.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I winged it on this one, and I built like that little wall for the
Terran.
Yeah, for the Terran.
Yeah.
And then he ended up being Terran. It was just a complete luck.
No, it's totally fine. I would just I like the ramp block, like the high ground ramp block, and like a PvP. If it's random, it just makes your odds increase in terms of like not getting fucked over.
Okay. Okay.
Because
yeah,
I feel like it's like the best of all worlds.
It covers more possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly. Okay. All right. So now with your build, I'll go back and look at your build for just a second. So when Pylon finishes, I definitely want to see a chrono boost. This like the second you put the gateway down, insta chrono boost that probe. So like right now, probe be chrono boosted. It is good shit. And then be careful about what you do here with the probes and the Nexus too. You definitely want to start that gas like as soon as possible, because you actually can squeeze out a gas and a probe at the same time. So for instance, if you had 100 more minerals in your bank account right now, and you see how like that one probe is like coming back to the Nexus like right now, for instance. Now you have 125. Yes. 125 minerals is enough to build a probe still in production with the chrono boost, and also build your gas. Okay. And it's like standard in general, like on all the time. So always only build one probe on your Nexus, and then build the gas only with one probe in production, and then the second the gas is done, spam a probe out as fast as you can so you don't waste the chrono boost, and you'll get it just barely as the probe finishes to starting your next probe. But what it does is it just increases your speed of your gas a lot. Okay. So your gas could be started like already right now, around like 49 seconds.
Gotcha. Yeah. And the time between the when the probe finishes and you start the next one, it's probably like a fraction of a second, basically.
Yeah. Well, if you actually, so have you ever heard me talk about stacking close mineral patches?
Yes, I guess putting 2 probes to the closest patches. That's how you kind of micro the probes. Is that correct?
Yeah. So you start with 12, and it means that since there are only 8 patches, 4 of them could have 2, and 4 of them could have 1. And if you put 2 probes on every patch that is a close patch, it will increase your income by a little bit over if you have some of them on doubled up on far patches. And then things like, for instance, building your gas and not letting your Nexus miss the probe will always happen. Like you'll always be able to get that probe before the probe finishes. But if you have situations with your probes where, like, let's say you have 3 probes on one patch and it's a far patch, and then you have like 2 probes on another patch that's far, and like 3 of your 4 patches that are close all only have 1 probe each on it, then you might have a situation where when you chrono boost your probe and you try to make that gas, you might be like, well, I'm trying to make another probe again now, but I'm missing like 2 seconds or 1 second, and then I'm able to make another probe again. That because you'll have a little bit less minerals.
Okay. Okay, so that's when they say that they're microing their probes or their workers, meaning that they'll micro them to start having 2 probes on each closed patch, and then after that you should just let it do it automatically, or?
Yeah, no, like, so if you can do 2 probes per patch, you stack close ones first and then far ones second. But you can do the main, and the reason why you can do the main is because nothing's happening at this point in the game. It's super easy peasy. Like, it's just chill moments in the game right now. But once you get to the point where you're at a natural, you're at a 3rd, 4th, 5th, you don't really have the time to do it then. You have so much other shit you got to worry about that's more important. And also, you're going to be, like, cycling probes all the time anyways, cause around that point, too, because it's just, you have probes coming and going in and out of the gas and shit. Like as you're saturating the bases, you can like then rip them off to put them in the gas. It does not have to be perfect. And also, you'll have more probes overall. So each little probe's job is less impactful at that point in time. So you just really don't have the time to be like, every base needs to have 2 per patch. And I'm going to meticulously grab every one of them. Because it's just, right now, there's just nothing going on. So you have plenty of time to do it.
in the early game, like right now, it basically gives you like a little boost.
It does. It's because every probe, the less probes you have, each individual probe is more impactful. But the higher your probe count goes, the less impactful each individual probe is. So like right now, when you only have 16, it's fucking huge not having any of them messed up. But if you have 54 probes, if like 2 of them are messed up, it doesn't really matter that much. You're not even really going to notice that much.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the AI will always at least allow you to have some efficiency. Like, it's never going to be like 7 probes on one patch and like 1 probe on other patches. It never does that. Like, it'll at most, at any point in time, if you have 16 probes on a patch, or on a mineral line rather, it'll only allow 3 max on one patch. If there's ever 4 in one patch, it'll auto transfer itself if there's only 16 on the mineral line to like a more efficient patch. So it's still going to get some efficiency. It's just not going to get good efficiency if it's 3 per patch. But like I said, the more probes you have, the less impactful that individual probe is. So it's not that huge at that point. There's way more important things you got to worry about later on.
Right.
Okay. But yeah. So your gas is, so if we're talking about your gas could have been started at 49 and it's now 59, that's the kind of shit that's going to make it harder to defend all ins, because now all your tech is delayed by a bit, because it's kind of substantial. But we'll come back to your build in a second here. We'll talk about what you see, all right?
Okay.
So a good way to read builds is to base your opponent's build off of your build. Always do this. This is so huge for understanding someone's build. So for instance, if you know, I just built my gateway recently, and I see a depot and a barracks for my opponent. You have a pylon and a gateway, and if you look at your gate and you look at his barracks, it's about the same, which means you guys have done identical things so far, because both the barracks and a gateway cost the same amount of money and they have the same build time. You can say the same thing about a depot. So everything's identical, which it should be so far. And as you go deeper into his base, you see no gas on that, and you see no gas on this. So now this shows you that you have a gas on your base that is recently, like, I would say your gas was even a little bit late, and you should know that like his gas and your gas, if you guys play standard, they should both be starting as you start the gateway or as you start the barracks. So the fact that he has no gas would tell me there are only 2 possibilities that could be happening right now. Number 1, this guy is going to make a command center, and he's going to make a command center, and he's going to make you know, just a gasless version of like something greedy and probably like a bunker. That's one way it could go. Another way it could go is he could go into just more barracks and make a lot of marines. And now he's actually shown you something that's pretty impactful. So if you know his only 2 options are to be really greedy or really aggressive, watch this. Look at his base for a second here. Or I'll speed it up back to the point where you're getting in, and watch his command center. So you don't really give yourself a ton of vision of it, because you kind of go wide. You also should not be going this wide around the base. You should be going more direct to his mineral line. That, because you're giving like, it's just taking you a while to like, I'm not gonna say like go straight through the whole mineral line itself, but like run.
To get killed when.
yeah. Like, you don't have to run between the minerals and the command center, but I would say you should like beeline it for one of the gases, and then like run around the gas on the outside and go around the back side of the mineral line and then go around that way. So you have more of a direct view of the command center and the worker count. Because the way you can tell what he's going to do is you can count workers. And this is a pretty, like, it's not that hard. I'll explain how in a second. But check this out. It's very subtle because you didn't scout directly at it. You scouted towards the side of his base. But look at the command center you're about to see. And do you notice how it's not doing anything? No sparks are flying off of it. It's very subtle because you didn't give yourself a lot of read of it, though. But you can tell he's not making SCVs. So,
ViBE, are you dating a pretty streamer girl?
Yeah.
If so, very happy for you.
Eggplant, thank you very much for 1,000 bits. Correct, yes. Appreciate you, man. I'm doing a coaching list right now, so I'm just going to kind of move on quickly. But thank you very much. I do appreciate it a lot, man. Thank you. Much love, Eggplant. Hope you're having a good night, man. But yeah, so, John, if you look at the command center, you can be like, okay, no, he's not building SCVs. So if we scout further now, if we're like, oh, you're not making SCVs, very interesting, very weird, and we'll see it again, he's still not making SCVs. Because again, there's no sparks flying off the command center. It's not producing shit right now. So if you go, okay, you are gasless, and you are not making SCVs. Those
Where's
two
the
things,
money going?
exactly.
Right.
Those two things are a big sign that you're like, well, what the fuck are you gonna do with all that money then? You're probably gonna make barracks, and if you have no intention of making SCVs already in the first minute of the game, like you just cut SCVs at this point, what the hell are you gonna do? Like, what are you doing? Why are you cutting SCVs so like this early now? It's like a big tell, because if this guy's gonna go, basically, if you then think to yourself, well, there's a chance I'm gonna get all in, and you play a little bit safer because of this, like you make a shield battery or something, or you scout a little bit more diligently to continue to confirm what he's doing. It's okay if you play safe, because if you play efficiently safe and he plays inefficient greed, where like let's say his idea was to go for a command center, but he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna stop making SCVs for a while, and then I'll start making SCVs again, and then I'll make a command center. It's like, okay, this is a terrible build for the Terran, and so on and so on. So it's just inefficient. So even if you are wrong and you think he might all-in you, but he actually is just going to expand, you're still ahead because his build's super inefficient, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So again, the whole thing here would be he only has two choices. One is greed with command centers, or one is aggression with barracks. And because he's not making SCVs, it tells you what he's doing. Which logically it should be the barracks. He's still not making SCVs.
Yeah. Looking at my camera, I think I wasn't looking for a long period of time. It was just like a glance, really.
Sure. Well, you don't need to honestly look that long. It's just it's like seeing, because like I'm not, what I don't want you to do as well. This is a big like negative if people do this. I would never want you to just stare at your probe for the next like 30 seconds and be like, what is happening? It's more or less just like knowing what to look for like a key information piece, and then deducing something from that. And the key information pieces here that you've given yourself are, is his build opening standard like yours is? The answer was yes so far, because you saw the barracks in the depot. So that's good. And then what does his resources look like? And the answer is gasless and no SCV production. And if you saw that, it would just be one of those things where it's like, cool, you're not making workers and you're also gasless. So that is a huge sign, and it would only take you a moment to see that. And then you could you know, I wouldn't say you have to stare at it, but you could like look at it again, maybe like 15 seconds later, and come back to his base again, or something, like, you know, just take a look at it again a little bit later and go, oh, there still is no gas and there still is no SCV production, and I now have a gas that's fully saturated basically. So that's huge information right there. And if I saw that, if I were you, I would 100% be making an effort to getting a shield battery and a sentry as fast as possible. And here's why. If you think about it, if this guy's going gasless all in, let's say he pulls SCVs and just goes a marine all in. If you make a sentry and you just force field the ramp, he's dead. Like, you could let all the SCVs in, or like a lot of the SCVs in, and block out like a lot of the marines down the ramp. And you could just like dice up his army on the ramp over and over and over if it came to that point. Otherwise, you could probably just defend your natural. You could still even expand and just defend your natural. Like, I would still even say you could still expand against this. And then you could just fall back to your ramp if you had to. So now that we kind of talked about his build and how you can read it, let's look at your build. Again, so we talked about the gas and how that could be a little bit faster, but let's look at the gateway really closely here. And, okay, your probe is sitting there right before. I would say your probe came a little early, but
Early, right?
it's better to be a little early than really late, especially with the fact that it looks like you're going to get all in, and this from what he's shown us so far. So just as long as you start that core like early, and you did, that core is not that late, it's good. You could have gone core first or nexus first in this situation. Honestly, if you knew he's going to all in you, I would say core first is actually more intelligent, but you could do either one. You could literally go nexus first and it'd still be okay, as long as you get the core right away, right after. But now I would say the biggest thing you'd want to do is immediately start a battery at the natural, like fucking right away. So now this is that moment where your probe is kind of scouting around his base and you're not utilizing your production, and that's kind of scary. Also, how often would you say you go adept against Terran first?
I would say probably like 80% of the time.
Okay. Do you really like it? Does it feel like it usually gets a lot of stuff done?
I guess so. Yeah, it just feels like it's a little bit faster when you're shading and you can chase around.
Sure.
You know, if they send a Reaper or something.
Okay.
But that's like the only time I use it against Darren. Really, like that one first adept. That's it.
Okay. And how often would you say you find yourself in a situation where your adept is like in his base, like killing SCVs and just getting damage done? Does it happen a lot or no?
No, I would say not very much.
Okay. So if I were to change anything about your build right now, I would recommend you make a Stalker first instead of an Adept.
Okay.
And then I would recommend you make a Sentry second after the Stalker. And the reason why is because a Stalker is so much stronger at defense and for so many other reasons. Like against an Adept, or sorry, against a Reaper, an Adept or a Stalker can both get the job done just fine at zoning out the Reaper and possibly killing it.
Mm-hmm.
But a Stalker has so much more viability against more things than just the Reaper. It's good against Marauder, it's good against Marine, it's good against SCV, it's good at kiting. It's faster than an Adept, it has more range than an Adept. And it's good against like people who push you with vehicles. Like if someone drops you or if someone fucking pushes you with tanks. Like it's better in those situations too. It's just better overall defensively. So I would definitely say I would highly recommend you just switch it over to a Stalker, and then once you start, if you get to the point where you're really comfortable and you want to do builds like for instance that are really aggressive. So if you're like if you're starting to go down the road of like I'm gonna go for a proxy gate and I'm gonna start pressuring Terran with proxy gate stuff, Adept would be good then. Maybe like as an opening unit, like you could just like shut down SCVs building stuff and try to like shade past the bunker if it's done already or whatever. But yeah, I would just say for now, I would highly recommend Stalker. And then, again, if you were reading the build, if you don't read the build and you don't know what's all in, and you don't have a battery, that's going to be kind of scary, obviously. But
yeah.
if you were reading the build this game and you saw, okay, no SCVs, this is super awkward, and you deduced probably going for a lot of barracks here, if having a battery would change, it would make a world of difference. It would change everything. But one thing to note too, not just having a battery or not having a battery changes stuff, but timing of when you build shit is always the most impactful thing that a lot of people kind of oversight. They just don't really think about it as hard. They're like, well, I made the units and it's okay, but if you make the units really late, it changes the whole the power shift to your opponent who is all-inning you, and it makes your life so much harder at defending it all in. Because check this out. Your core is going to finish at 209, and your Stalker could start at 209. Ideally, right? But you are your supply is opening up actually in 1 second from now, so 210 you could start your Stalker, but
I still don't have minerals.
Well, it's because you built another pylon as well.
Oh.
So you built it. You have a probe queued up, and you started another pylon. So you have 150 minerals just kind of like being used up that you don't need to use. Because you 100% can make a Stalker and your warp gate right away. You always can. If your build is the standard pylon gate, gas, nexus, core, gas pylon, which is kind of what your build was. It was pretty much, it's just the nexus and the core were opposite. It's because your core was first. But even then, you still could have afforded the Stalker. Your warp gate might have been a little bit delayed for just a second. But 210, your Stalker could have started. But your Stalker does not start until like well your adept starts at around 220, like 220 to 221, so that is super late. That's that's like a 12-second difference in time. And if we're thinking if your gateway is chrono boosted for 12 seconds in production, that Stalker could already be at like 20 seconds of the way in production already, or so, like 18 to 20 seconds of the way in. So that Stalker would already it would be like 2/3 of the way done and going. Like in the next like 5 seconds, it would be, or like 8 seconds, it would be ready to pop out, because the chrono boost is going to speed it up. So that would mean you'd have a Stalker popping out probably around like 227, 229, somewhere in there. And an Adept and a Stalker have the same build time, so it'll look the same, even though it's an Adept. And that's just the kind of shit that, it would be pretty huge if you had the unit for
Right.
general
Earlier.
purposes.
Yeah.
The firstborn shall persevere.
And like right here again, your gateway's not building anything for like, it was like a 3-second window of time there from when the adept popped out to when the stalker started. That's once again kind of scary. And now also you don't have a sentry. So this adept has a lot of pressure on him to scout now, which is why I recommend if you go sentry stalker, or stalker first into sentry, then back into
Appreciate you,
stalkers.
ViBE.
If you do that instead, it's going to give you so much easier ways to scout your opponent because you can fly over the cliff and over the wall. Because right now you won't be able to scout if the wall's closed. You'll just be sitting there on the outside of the wall being like, what are you doing? And now it's a bit more of a, and this is where like now your stalker moving out across the map. This is not the time to move out your stalker across the map. And
Yeah, I think I totally left it in
the rally.
rally.
Yeah, no, for
that's
sure.
the
I get you. And this is the kind of shit too where I would say, look at your gateway again. Your stalker popped out, and your gateway has not produced anything. It's just chilling, right? You have a robo and a gateway that's also started, which is nice, but your first stalker could have popped out around like 228, and your second, if we did not chrono boost your second or your third stalker, you could have made a every 30 seconds you could have had another unit. So from 228 to now 324, you could have pretty much had an extra 2 units. Like you would have 1 extra unit, and the second unit, like realistically, you could have actually had 2 more units because here's why. A sentry has a 4-second faster build time than a stalker or an adept. So, and you would have had a stalker by like 328 or by 228, sorry, and you're 4 seconds off from that. So you could guaranteed like right now, you could have had a sentry already out, and your stalker, your third unit, would be popping out of the gateway like right now. So you would have just had like a bonus sentry essentially right now. And then if you would have paid attention to the whole he's not making SCVs bullshit that was going on, and you played for the defense, where you made a shield battery right away because you're like, okay, this is very fishy. This is super suspicious. So you would have had a shield battery, 2 stalkers, and a sentry already ready to go as he shows up with his 9 Marines. 9 Marines cannot break through 2 stalkers and a sentry during a shield battery. And you would... you also have the ability to overcharge your battery, and you could guaranteed win that fight.
Okay.
But what's...
I see all the mistakes, yes.
But it's, and also, and here's the biggest thing of all. This is why when you were talking about like the parting build and shit like that, this is why I would say I would want you to do that at a higher level, like Diamond or Masters, is because watch this. This is the shit that happens to everybody that does it before they can really. The reason why is because I think you have to think too hard about macroing when you're in Platinum, because you haven't done it enough to the point where it's just drilled into you like breathing. Because if you have to think about macroing, it means you're not ready to do other things. You should get to a point where you can literally just autopilot and have a conversation with someone across the room and still be able to macro. Like, you should not, like your brain, you're just in general, your brain should not have to think about macroing. It should just be automated. So
Second nature.
yeah, so watch your adept right now and hit D on the keyboard to watch your production and watch your adept. Just so we're staring at your adept and we're watching production in top left. You're microing the adept. You have 1 probe that just finished, and another probe is not being built. Your stalker just finished, and there is no stalker being built, or there's nothing being built after the stalker. Your production, and watch your money. Your production is kind of just ceasing. It's just kind of stopping. You're microing the adept.
Money's piling up.
Yeah, and now you have both probes done, and nothing is happening. So you haven't made a stalker, or you haven't made anything out of the gateway since that stalker finished, and you haven't made a single worker out of your nexus since the other probes have finished. And this is going to happen to you repeatedly when you put yourself in situations where you're trying to micro adepts, or like trying to micro pressure into your opponent. It doesn't have to be an adept specifically, just any pressure. This is why I highly recommend you just play defensive macro over aggressive like timing attacks, because you're just gonna, what happens is whenever you see a pro gamer do a timing, they're able to flawlessly macro behind it because that's just how good they are at the game. But they put themselves in a situation when they do pressure that they have to get enough damage done to justify the investment of their pressure. So if they invest a certain amount of time and money into their build, which is going to it makes their build behind where it could be if they just played greedy. They now have to justify the trade-off of now doing damage to their opponent to set their opponent's build behind. So, like, I want to make this make sense. I'll say it in a different way. This might be easier to understand. If you set your own build back 30 seconds to invest into a pressure, you have to make your opponent's build go beyond 30 seconds behind where it would want to be because of the damage you do to them, if that makes sense.
I guess the way that I understand it is like there's this other build that I've been doing with it, which is like a 3 DT rush that Parting did to Terran, and I've done that also. I've kind of like used that on Zerg.
Sure.
And when I've watched the replays, basically, yeah, that's what happens where I might have like 24 probes just because I have one full base. And they're like almost at 40.
Yeah.
And then I drop the TTs on their base, kill their hive, and killed a bunch of their drones, and it basically brings it back down to where I am at.
Yeah, exactly.
So that then I can kind of like catch up to them by erasing what they had ahead of me, sort of thing, I guess. Because
the idea of a pressure, this is the idea of a pressure, and this is why it's super hard. It's really, really difficult to multitask, micromanage your army that's pressuring, and also not fuck your macro up. And a pro gamer will be able to do that all the time, and they'll make it look super good because you're just watching them do damage, and then suddenly they're way ahead if they get a lot of damage done. But if you don't have the multitasking to micromanage your base and your army at the same time and not deviate, like, oh, I missed 8 seconds of probes for here, and then that probe finishes, and I missed 12 seconds of probe there, and then that probe finishes, and I missed 18 seconds of a probe there. What's going to happen is your build already has a negative moment in your timer where you're like already putting yourself like 30 seconds as an example behind, just because you're investing into gas tech pressure instead of economy. So you're already behind by a substantial, like a certain amount already, like just as it is. But every time you make a mistake and you just don't macro while you try to attack, it's now 34 seconds behind. Now you're 39 seconds behind. Now you're 48 seconds behind. Now you're 55 seconds behind. Yeah, it just keeps going and going and going. And it means every time that happens to you, you have to get even more damage done to justify how behind you are. And every time you try to do more damage, you keep tunnel visioning and fixating on your units that are attacking, which is in turn stopping your macro. And it's just making the number go up anyways. So this is the common problem so many people fucking have in general, like in Plat and so on, when they watch a pro and they go, I'm going to do this pressure build. And then they just start ruining their own build essentially while trying to ruin their opponent's build. And the worst thing that happens of all is when you try to do an attack and you botch it, and so it just fails. And you've put your build now like 2 minutes behind, and their build is only deviated by like 15 seconds. And you're like, well, I'm super dead now. So yeah, so I would recommend that you go for more of a macro playstyle, and then you could do like pressure stuff throughout the mid game and stuff like that. But I mean, if you want to still do early pressures, I'm not gonna say you can't. Obviously, you play the game the way you want to play it. But that's just in general what you're gonna run into a lot, I feel like, because those are builds that are mostly designed for like Masters Plus.
Okay.
But yeah, so like right now, you could have had the defense to defend this. It would have just been like 2 sentries or 2 stalkers, a sentry, and a battery, and you would hold this no problem. And then you could be making units out of a robo. You could start making immortals, and you could keep making stalkers soon out of warp gate as well. So there's a lot of things that you could be able to afford. Also, I'm gonna back it up just for a second. I want to see how late your warp gate was, because you should be able to afford 3 units out of your gateway, one of them being chrono boosted. And by the 3rd unit, your warp gate should be basically finishing. So you can warp in units 4 and 5 out of your 2 gate. I feel like your warp gate was delayed. Let's see. So it finishes at 209. Yeah, you started warp gate at like 223. So that was like 14 seconds. Yeah. So like that's substantial again. And then you know why that was happening? It's because you were microing the probe. So you're gonna constantly have these hiccups in your build, where you overinvest your attention into the unit at his base. You're focusing on his base too much and not enough on yours. When realistically, you want to invest probably only like in the first like scout part of the game. You want to invest probably like 5% of your time into looking at his base and then go back to yours again. Like it's very brief flickers of moments where you just look and go back. So like the first scout would have been, cool, he's got the barracks when I have my gateway. Good shit. Easy peasy. Not proxied, and it's same time. Let's go back to your base. Macro whatever you need to macro. Fix your pylon. Don't supply block. Make your gas. All those things. And then you go deeper. And you see, oh, no gas? No SCVs being produced? Okay. Go back to my base. Now, go with a defensive mindset. That's all it is. And then you can make the probe not just... You don't have to necessarily, like, do these fucking laps around his base like this. You could honestly just run to the side of his base. That'd be totally fine. Because you've already seen what you need to see in the very beginning of the game, and doing like shift clicking this like trapezoid doing it like 40 clicks, like click 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 click, just making sure your probe is like always doing laps. You don't need to do that because what you've seen already is not going to change in like the next like 3 seconds. So always having a probe, always looking at it is irrelevant. You just want to check up on him. And you want to see, like right now you go, oh cool, no, like it's more about like reading what you have rather than trying to look at everything the whole time. It's just having a more keen eye to like seeing what's important, and seeing no SCVs being produced is super critical. That's massively important, and seeing no gas is massively important because it tells you the flare of his build, like the gasless flare of the build now, and the gasless. Understanding gasless can only be 2 things, and the no SCVs kind of rules out one of those things it could have been. And then if you come back, if you go to the side of his base for like 15, 20 seconds and you macro, make everything perfect, you come back and do another lap around his base again a second time, and you go, okay, you're still gasless, and you're still not making SCVs. Okay, I've confirmed it now. Like, you're totally fucking all-inning me because you don't even give a shit about economy. Like, you're gasless, but you're not making workers, so that doesn't really go hand in hand with making economy. And then if you just then play defensive with you know expecting some type of aggression to happen, that'd be great, super good. Because then if the Marines came to your ramp or to your base, and let's say if you felt like you needed to, you could always retreat back to the ramp. Otherwise, you could just hold your ground at the battery and just kill his units. And you 100% could have killed his units with the battery.
Okay. Now I would have had. Do you suggest I had the battery the natural or?
Yeah, at the natural, yeah. I would highly recommend you just build it at the natural, and the reason why is because he is not proxying you with his first racks. He's trying to make his build look standard, which is slowing down his all-in anyways. Like, if you got to your base, or rather, if your probe got to his base, and there was literally 1 depot on the ramp, and that was it, and there was no gas and no SCVs, no SCVs being built and no gas at all, I'd be like, all right, maybe make a second gateway before you make the Nexus, and like build a battery on the high ground at where your pylon is, because this dude might just straight up pull SCVs and just like run at you with a bunch of fucking Marines, like a proxy 3 racks or something.
Okay.
But he didn't proxy the first rack, so he's already slowing his own all-in down. So you could totally make a battery at your natural and be fine. Because check this out too. Your core finished at 209, right? And now a battery's build time is 30 seconds, or it's 29 seconds. But so I guess that would mean that the core would finish at 248, right? Or am I, wait, what? No, it's 238. 238. So at 238, your battery could finish at the natural. And we'll give it.
So I would have a battery right basically now.
Yeah, you could. Because you'd also have more than 1 unit right now too, because you all the shit was delayed. Like your warp gate was delayed, your unit was delayed. You could have 1 unit already sitting at the pylon, and you could have a second unit like halfway done already.
Okay.
Glory to the Daylong.
And then if you had a unit sitting there, like a second unit reinforces it around 3 minutes with the battery, and then your third unit comes out around 30 seconds later, you would have easily had 3 units and a battery well in time before they all hit you. Like your battery's been like you've had over like a minute and like 20 seconds to prepare for this, essentially. Since the core finished.
Yeah. Okay. That's very useful.
And then keep in mind too, a lot of people may or may not, some people just don't know this, but if you ever get all in like this, always be very liberal, like do it quickly with your battery overcharge, because battery overcharge actually, it not only makes it free to heal with the battery, so it makes it just last longer for 14 seconds, but it increases the rate at which it heals your units by double. So it mitigates damage even faster. And if we're talking about, what's up?
The damage.
The what, sorry?
It can help the units take twice as much damage.
Yeah. So the only way he really overpowers your units then is if he has enough raw damage to just straight up kill your unit with like one hit through the battery. Because if he's like, and that would be mostly like marauders, because they could just like one hit your fucking stalkers and kill them. If there's like 10 of them or something, or like 6 of them or whatever. But if he has just marines hit a lot weaker, and especially if you have a sentry there with guardian shield, you will definitely not be getting killed in one hit. And it will be like each time the Marines shoot, your Stalker's full health. Marines shoot, Stalker's full health. Marines shoot, Stalker's full health. It'll just keep being full health, full health, full health. Because a shield battery can heal 51 shields a second. And when the shield battery's on, it can heal 102 shields a second. It's fucking insane. It can full heal a Stalker's shields in 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. And a Marine only does 6 damage. And he's got, right now, he has 11 Marines. Or, sorry, he has 13 Marines. So 13 times 6 is 78. So he actually does, 78, and the Stalker has 80 shields in total. So he has enough damage to almost kill your shield. You'll have 2 shields at the end of it. And then 1 second goes by, full shields. He does 72 damage again. Or 78 damage again. 2 shields, and then you go back to full shields. So, and then you'll be killing Marines too at the same time. So it's not like he's going to have this much damage the entire time. It only takes 2 Stalkers and a Sentry, 2 auto attacks to kill a Marine, 2 auto attacks to kill a Marine, 2 auto attacks to kill a Marine. So each time he shoots twice, like a Marine's going to die. Or every time he shoots like 3 times, a Marine will die because Stalkers shoot a little slower. But the point is you'll definitely wear his army down, and your army will grow as it happens. So anything about this game? How you feel? Does it all of it make sense, or what do you think?
Yeah, for sure. That's those are very, very good observations and very helpful for sure.
And a lot of this game comes down to is your build just like hitting the timings you're looking for, or are you doing things like attacking with an adept or scouting with a probe and like trying to not lose it and then not macroing? Like that shit will fucks you so much in the future if you do that too often.
Gotcha.
All right, so we can bounce out of this, and we can jump into another one, and I'll kind of give you more of a general theme of idea of what you're doing with your build.
Okay. This one, it's gonna be that like super long one that I thought I didn't know how to win. I didn't know how I want it, but
sure. And then make me the lobby host, and we'll get it going. Nice.
For some reason, when I was playing yesterday, everybody was just tearing.
Yeah.
like 6 tears in a row. I was like, darn.
That's what happens, man. So good. That's actually, it happens more often than you think. I feel like there's a lot of days where I'm just like, today's a Zerg day, or today's a Protoss day.
Yeah. I'm like, how is that random?
Yeah, right. Alright, your gas is much cleaner this game than it was last time. It was a lot faster.
Uh-oh. I still waited for a little while.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's because you just sent the probe early. I would say as well, just keep in mind too, for the build in general, for a standard build, you definitely want to be going for the Nexus before the core. I would only recommend you go for the core before the Nexus if you know it's going to be an all-in.
Okay.
And you've spotted that now it's all in, so you want to, take precautions and go core first instead. But like even against the last game you played, the Terran who did proxy all in barracks, you still could have easily beaten him with the Nexus first, or like a gateway, then Nexus, then core.
Gotcha.
Okay, so now if we're looking at this guy's base and we're getting in there, his racks and his depot are at the same time as your pylon and gateway. Everything looks standard. Now look at his command center. Watch the command center. Notice how there's sparks coming out of the front of it?
Yeah.
And it's like lighting up and shit. That means this dude's making SCVs. So this guy's gasless as well, which is fucking weird again.
I know. When I saw it first, I was like, oh man, this is looking way a lot like the other one.
But he's making SCVs, so it's not the same thing. Now it's the other side of things where I go, okay, this guy's gasless, but he's making SCVs, and there's no reason why this guy's going to keep cranking SCV after SCV after SCV if he's gasless, and he's going to all-in you. Because he's just going to have, all it's going to do is weaken his all-in because he just over-invested in SCVs that he doesn't need because he's going to oversaturate a mineral line. So, this guy's going to do one of two things probably because he's still making SCVs. He's going to probably take a command center pretty fast, or he might do some weird gas explosion where he does double gas. But again, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because if he wanted to tech really fast with gas, he would probably go for gas early, like just one gas and do something more economical than double gassing it late. So I would say chances are very high that this dude's going to make a command center because he's making SCVs.
Okay.
And then now your probe is checking for those proxies. It's getting paranoid. But but the bigger.
Yeah, I sent that one because I was like, that looks a lot like the other one.
Yeah.
And then I saw the gas went up, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Here's a crazy thing. Time wise, this will tell you if you're doing it well or doing it really slow. Your Nexus should be started about 125, and it should be finishing around 236.
Oh wow.
And your Nexus, it's already almost 210, and your Nexus hasn't even started yet. So you are putting yourself very far behind right now, and you're double battering your main right now. Like you're definitely playing paranoid. Like you're thinking it's happening again. I'm not dying this time, bro. Yeah, it's fucking.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And now look at him. He's going for gas. And I bet if your probe just took it, like this is where I would say, scouting is important, right? Like, and it's about the quick moments. It's not about constantly looking at his base. It's about the quick reads. And this game, the difference was he's still making SCVs, and he also made an orbital command, and he made a gas. And if you were to go down to his natural, there's a good chance he has not yet made a second depot because I bet there's a good chance he has a command center at the natural. And I'm not looking at everyone's vision. I'm just looking at yours, so I can't obviously see it right now. But that's what it would look like. There's a very good chance that this dude has a natural. So key things to look for would be in a moment like this where you keep seeing SCVs, you would think to yourself, gasless or like very delayed gas. He's still making SCVs. I think it's command center now because why else is he going to keep making SCVs? Probably to progress his economy with an expansion.
Yes. I think eventually I realized that. I was like, oh, okay, so then I think I just went back and started the Nexus.
Sure.
At some point.
Yeah. And now you can see also he's got 2 racks defensively at his base. They're not proxied, which it makes it a little bit less intimidating. But like your Nexus started at 250 when it should have been done at 236. So your build right now is very far behind. Like at 3 minutes, your Nexus at your natural should already have like 6 probes on it. Or like 8 probes on it, mining actively. And this is why like, and think about this too. Remember how we were talking how like your unit count too? Like if you were gonna get all in again this game, you have spent so much time scouting around the map constantly and being kind of paranoid about what could be happening. You just now made your first stalker at 316. Or like more like 314.
Take my attention away, that's for sure.
Yeah, so you're just not macroing enough while you spend way too much time being paranoid and like thinking about what could happen. Because if this guy even did attack you, and let's say he actually was all-inning you, you would still die because you just have no units to defend yourself. Because remember how the last attack hits you at 330 with like 13 Marines. And last game you had 2 units by then. Last game you had a stalker walking out and dying at the rocks in front of your natural around 324. And then your adept was already out. And right now at 324 you have 1 stalker in your main base just sitting there. And you have a sentry that is not even out yet. And like the Marines would already be killing your Nexus right now at your natural. If it was the same as last game. And then 1 stalker would never be able to help. You'd have to cancel that gate, cancel that gas, the other pylon, the Nexus, and then let the other pylon that's already done die. And you'd be back down to 1 base again. And it would, you know, he might not be able to kill you going up the ramp. That may or may not happen. But putting yourself in a position like that where you're now stuck in this back foot would suck. And the main reason why is because you scouted a gas relatively early. Even though he didn't rush it like he should have off the barracks, he still built it like before you made the core. Or like right around when he made the core, essentially. Like it was right as the barracks was done, he made the gas. So like, you know, he has a gas, and if someone has a gas and you get contained, that's not a good thing for you. That's definitely gonna suck.
Right.
So really, like, your biggest problem, I would say, is your reactions are overreactions. They're definitely overreacting. And if you had more of a standard build that just had units inside of it, you would have such an easier time dealing with everything. Because right now you're building a bunch of batteries and a bunch of shit. But if you just did a standard build of like macro efficiency, right now at 4 minutes, you could already have 5 units. You could have 4 stalkers and a sentry and a battery at your natural. Just 1 battery. But right now you have 5 batteries and 2 units. And 1 battery is all you would need to deal with this bunker that has 2 Marines in it. If you had 4 stalkers and a sentry and 1 battery, you could easily overpower that bunker and not even give a shit. And you would have almost a fully saturated mineral line by between 4 and 5 minutes. Like, right now you'd probably be at like 14 probes on the mineral line, or like 12 probes on the mineral line already at your natural, and it would be going up quickly because you'd be double chrono boosting both Nexus.
Okay.
But look at your, like, for instance, you actually just killed that bunker with a sentry and 2 stalkers, and you warped in the 3rd stalker after it died. And look at your batteries. Only 1 battery really used the energy to heal you through that. So imagine if you had 5 units instead of 3. Imagine if you had double the stalkers that you did to kill that bunker. You would have killed it twice as fast, because stalkers are what really does the damage there. And you wouldn't even have fully depleted that 1 battery.
Right. I would have used those 200 that I spent on those batteries to have more units, basically.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Like, you actually spent an extra 400 on batteries because you actually have 5 batteries and you only needed 1.
Oh, yeah.
And I know it's because you're just playing paranoid because you think the same thing's happening again and you're not sure how to react. But if you just, the thing is like, if you just play efficient, you'll be fine anyways. Like, you have a very low chance of dying.
Okay.
Because like right now, for instance, we're at 6 minutes and you have 34 probes and you have 58 supply. In a game where you played efficient, if you were playing efficient, you could already have a 3rd base done right now. Your supply could be like 75 or like 80, and you could have probably like 50 probes plus, like 54 probes or something.
Yeah, because the third, you throw it down probably like around 430, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Alright, so I'm actually... I kind of want to just give you an example build. And I want you to do this build against everybody, regardless of what... Like, you can slowly work on trying to scout. I think that'll be good for you to, like... Don't, like... Okay, so... You know what? This is actually what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. I want you to start I'm gonna explain it when I'll give you an example game, but I'll explain what I'm doing. But I want you to start going into your replays when the game is over, and then I want you to go to your vision only in the replay. And you don't even have to do it directly after the game. Maybe just do it like maybe play like 10 games. Just play like 10 games in a day. And then, or however many you want to play. And then come back to those replays like 3 days later or like 2 days later. And maybe you've forgotten how some of those games went. And just pick one of them. And then look at when the replay starts, go to your vision only. Like you don't have to go to your specific camera, but go to the game where you only see your vision. So like you click basically like your name in the replay. So you can't see your opponent's build. And then you pause the replay at points, just like how we did in this coaching lesson, where you try to deduce like, what do I see in his base? And you think about it really critically there. And you go, oh, okay, so what is he doing here? Like, what am I looking for here? What makes sense? Just like how we did. Like, is he making SCVs? Like, look for these little details we've already talked about. Yeah. And like, when is he taking his gas? Does it look like my build? Should I be worried right now? Or am I freaking out? And then when you're playing the game, don't even think about it. Just do an efficient build and just send your SCV to his, or send your probe to his base and then send it right back. Like, give yourself a read to, like, in terms of like, you can look at his base for a second and then come right back. And you'll start to realize playing Paranoid is actually such a negative for you, because if you just played standard efficient, you would be so much further ahead against everything, as opposed to feeling more, because a lot of people when they play Paranoid, they feel safer because they're like, they do things like, I made a bunch of batteries, I'll probably be okay now. But in reality, if you just have more units, you're more than okay. Like that's actually the better version. Because if I'm a guy who's all-inning someone and I get over to his base and he has 1/3 of my army size and like 5 fucking batteries, I'll be like, okay, I'll just overpower your army super hard now because your army's super tiny. As opposed to if I'm all-inning somebody and he has a battery, but he has an army that's like just as big as mine, but he also now has an expansion, so I feel like I'm the one under pressure, because if I don't do something now, I'm falling further behind faster, and his army's growing at a quicker rate than what I'm able to make because I'm one base all-inning him. But yet it's really hard to break him because he has the fucking battery there. Then I'm just like, okay, this is now really hard. And that's how your opponent feels if you just play efficient. So it's weird, and it feels awkward because a lot of people don't understand the limits of what people are capable of, and they think that if they make an army and make probes that they'll just die. But it's not at all how it works. So
anti-intuitive.
Yeah. So like, if you just kind of try to start building upon your scouting knowledge and how to like read builds in replays for now, that would probably be a lot better for you than trying to do it in a live game where you distract the shit out of yourself and you slow your whole build down, because it's going to throw off your state of mind as to what you think your opponents are capable of if you keep throwing your own build off because you're trying to really super read their build, and your own build is far behind where it should be because you keep delaying your own build. And it's going to make you feel like you will die to all-ins because you're like, well, I always die because it's just, you know, like he always has more than me. But if you just macro efficiently, you don't have those moments where it's like 20 seconds later you build a stalker, and then another 15 seconds later you build another one. But instead now, or like 3 minutes and 30 seconds in the game, you have one stalker out. But instead you just efficiently pump those units, and then now when your opponent shows up with their timing, you just crush it because you just have enough. It's going to be like, well, okay, so I am capable of doing this. Okay, that makes more sense. So yeah. So, and then honestly, we're going to go through this now really fast, and I'll give you an example build after this because your opening build is very far behind. I'm telling you right now, you could be like maxed right now. Nothing has happened this game that should not have prevented that from happening. You could be totally maxed by like 10:30. And you're maxing this game, and at 10:30 you were like at 110 supply, and this game right now you're still at 170 supply, now 180 supply at 13 minutes, almost 14 minutes, still not maxed. Okay, you're basically maxed. You hit 196, I'll just count it there. You maxed basically around 14 minutes, so it's a super late max. And it's just because that's how StarCraft goes. The slower your build-up is at the start of the game, the weaker your whole after game is after that. Like, because you can't just like have a train derail itself and then suddenly get back on the track. If a train ever derails itself, it's off the track forever, and it's just fucking derailed the whole time. because you don't get that time back. All right, so now I would say what your goal should be, if your opponent plays like in this particular game, what you should be doing is you should be scouting for where his expansions are. Killing newest expansions first, always. Always do that. Do not ever let your opponent have bases that he shouldn't have, because newest bases are always the hardest to defend as well. So it's the best chance you're going to win the fight too.
I think at some point I do send like a zealot around, but it goes later on.
I would say you're having a bit of a problem too of just macroing in general with like right now you have 10 gates, which 10 gates is 10 gates is not that bad, but you have 88 probes and you have you have 5 stargates and you have, where's your robos? You have 1 robo. So you've recently started making stargate units, very recently, but you've had this like buildup of this like massive amount of money for the longest time. And I do think that while you were taking fights like at his third, for instance, you were not macroing enough because your supply was super low for a while, like back in the low 100s. And you only had 10 gates to keep making units off of. So in moments like that, huh? Sorry, what was that?
It took a while to build back up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it has to be one of two things. So you need to overmake production to like remax quickly, or you need to be very active at just maintaining production out of your production. But with the way you're kind of playing it, where you allow yourself to max out and bank up, you should make more gates than 10. Making only like 10 gates only really applies to players that always stay low money in the bank because they're always playing a trade heavy style. They're like constantly attacking all the time. That's more pro focused. Pros usually play that way because it's always trying to get damage done and trying to multitask. But players who try to emulate pros don't realize that they wait for 2 minutes when the pro would have already attacked like for the last 2 minutes the entire time. That's just how people are. So if you ever find yourself waiting and you have like thousands of minerals in the bank while you're maxed out, that's not a bad thing. Just make sure you overproduce some production so you can remax faster. So make like an extra 8 gates or something to go to like 18 gateways instead of like just 10.
Gotcha.
The idea of you going into a Stargate though is really nice. I do like it. You gotta be really careful about those Widow Mines though. They're getting some juicy fucking trades. Yeah. A good easy way to deal with Widow Mines. Colossus is an amazing unit to deal with it, but just have an observer auto follow your unit. Like either a Tempest or a Colossus. Probably a Colossus. And you take it out of your control group. So it just move command follows your Colossus, and it will always be in range to detect shit before you walk into it. And it will never fly forward in case the Terran scans, and it will just die.
Okay.
You don't have to have... Yeah, you could still also have some observers in your control group too. That'd be totally fine. Just have like at least one observer following a unit that will never run into the front line. It's a range unit that'll stay in the back, and it will kill Widow Mines out of range. Okay, and now your opponent's going for... So now you're in a situation where your opponent's going for Vikings and shit. I would say for you, just in general, go carriers. Like if you want to add in Skytoss transitions, just go carriers instead of Tempest. Tempest are much more specific at needing to be microed and also good against mech. And this guy's definitely not going mech. He's going like hybrid bio with some supporting units of mech. Like he's getting some Vikings and some tanks and some medevacs to support his Marine Marauder army. So carrier, if you went carrier, it's very more. It's a lot more A move friendly. Yeah, it's just easier to use. It's a way more DPS front load, and it can deal with like a bunch of Vikings, for instance. Like if you had carriers versus Vikings, you would win. Very more gooder. Yeah, it's correct. Yep.
What's that?
No, someone in my chat said very more gooder because of the way I was
Oh.
wording that last sentence. And then Disruptor 2, it's a bit of a rough unit to use for now. And I would say, again, that's probably one of those things where it's better against mech. Against Bio, Bio Mine, I would still recommend you just use Colossus if you're going to use something out of the Robo. It's just easier to use. Because your army's becoming very technical. And going Charge Lot Disruptor is not really a synergy. It makes it really hard to be like, Disruptors go! Charge Lots, don't run into it! Oh shit! Like, oh god, let's not fucking blow my own units up!
Pull it back.
Yeah, yeah.
Friendly fire for sure.
Yeah.
He had mines everywhere.
I know, this guy's playing super annoying for sure. And then, like, if you made carriers too, same thing, where you could just have an observer, like, follow the carrier, like a carrier, and you would never run into one of mines, really. Those are some nice disruptor hits right there. But now, again, the one thing that you got going for yourself, though, is this Terran is being massively wasteful, and he doesn't have as good of an economy as you do, because he actually just threw away a bunch of fucking SCVs. You have not as much active mining as he does, though, unfortunately, so... He is, even though he's got less SCVs, he is mining more than you currently. But you have this juicy fucking bank to work with, and you're higher in supply. So in games like this, all you got to do is, if you could just be patient about it and just calm down, like don't overreact and don't freak out and be like, I got to all in, I got to go kill something. Just scout expansions and know where his newest expansions are, and always try to kill them. Because every time someone takes a base, if you just think about this in your head and you go, every time someone expands to a base, you can mark about 8 minutes on it. If you think to yourself, like, okay, he's got top middle. Let's say I scouted that at 24 minutes. I can guarantee by 32 minutes, that base is going to be mined out. So it's like 8 minutes of time for them to work with it. But so that means the game would go on for another 8 minutes for sure because of that base. But if you can prevent them from taking new bases, or
cut the game shorter.
Exactly, yeah. You cut time off of the end of their game for them. Or let's say, hypothetically, let's say you scouted bottom left at 19 minutes and you scouted top middle at 24 minutes. And let's say at 25 minutes you killed top middle. And you're like, cool, I just cut off that base, so that base is now dead. And what was his last base? 19 minutes? Okay, that means he's going to be dead at 27 minutes. If I just continue to keep the pace I'm going. Now, you don't have to do it. That's kind of intense. I'm not saying definitely... Make a mental note of every base's timer. That's not something you have to do right now, but that is something you will learn through experience. You will start just generalizing like, okay, people usually have a 4th by now. People usually have a 5th by now. People usually have a 3rd by now. It'll start becoming like, again, second nature, and you won't have to think about it as hard because you just have experience that tells you that's standard. And it's just normal. It's like understanding how to speak English, for instance. So that'll be something you'll start to just develop over time. And if you just play the game in a way where you just don't let them continue to take new bases, you can always bleed them out and starve them in a war of attrition and just win that way too. That's a very, very common, effective way to win the game.
Okay.
Yeah, this guy loves what of mine's fucking everywhere. Like, what am I here? What am I there? Fuck expansions! Ha ha ha!
Basically, yeah. Finally I get those expansions, but then he comes in and is like, oh god.
Yeah.
And then he got ghosts, I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah. He's nuking you too, or he was trying to.
Trying to.
Yeah, this is just a moment where, if you just had a more suitable army, for sure, that wasn't so technical. Like Disruptor Tempest is super technical. I highly recommend you just going carrier, and you'll just be like, you can open up with like Stalker, Colossus, Charge of the Archon, Immortal, things like that. And if you just go into carrier, you'll be like, wow, this is super easy. Carrier good. Carrier super good.
Can an overcharged battery recharge, heal a cannon?
Yeah. Yep. It automatically heals everything that is military. So anything that has an auto attack, it'll heal that automatically. Probe, cannon, any unit that you can make out of a gateway, Robo Stargate, things like that. The only thing it has to manually be told to heal. Yeah, exactly. Buildings that are neutral. So like a pylon, a nexus, any production building that has no auto attack, they will not be automatically healed. But you can tell the battery to heal them manually, and it will heal it then.
Okay.
The only thing a battery cannot heal is itself. Two batteries can heal each other, but one battery cannot heal itself. All right. So yeah, I feel like this is just that moment where you're getting caught in this like back foot for too long, and your opponent's doing exactly what I was saying you should do to him, which is he's starving you out. He keeps going for your expansions, and then he pushes him. All right. So let's bump out of this, and I will make a quick example build for you, and then we'll probably wrap it up with that. And then while I'm doing this, feel free to ask questions galore. If you have lots of questions you want to be answered, by all means, go for it. And I will make the game really fast. I'll invite you to it. All right, I'll make you referee. Okay, and let's do this. And this is just going to be like the build I think you should be doing for yourself all the time. I'll do defensive Stalker Colossus into charge lot into carrier, literally. It's super simple, super effective. And then this is the build you can base off like you're like starting to understand how to scout people. And like I said, like don't worry too hard about what you see. Like just set up your scouts. Worry about actually trying to send a unit to their base, but do not worry too much about trying to read what it is. Just do standard build. And then in your replays later on, try to go back and understand what the hell is happening, so that you can actually start deducing those with them, like where you can actually think about it, and then
like those small signals or those small
exactly. And
signs of what they're doing.
And it would be really good to look at replays that you don't remember. Like if you, as long as you play the correct way, look at replays that you can't fully remember, so you actually have to use your brain and think about it, and not just be like, well, I kind of know what happens, so this doesn't really matter. Like it'd be great if you actually think about it really critically. All right, so I'm gonna send a probe to his base and scout. We'll send probe 17. And then
So you're not sending the probe as soon as they build a gate then?
you can if you want to. You don't have to though. Just start doing this. I would say just start doing this. Just make this your habit. Against Terran. This is a good thing against Terran, I would say. Against Zerg and Protoss. Against Protoss, it's good too. Against Zerg, you probably want to scout up to the gateway. Zerg is the only outlier. Zerg is definitely gateway scout. Because Zerg could fucking 12 pull you.
Yeah.
If you feel more comfortable doing a gateway scout, just know it's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not like, oh, you definitely shouldn't. I would not mind it.
Okay.
And now with the scout, while we're at his base, I will literally just be like, let's take one lap. And let's get the fuck out of here. And then this way you're not missing like your second pylon or something like that, or you're not fucking your build up. And then if you really felt like you needed to, you could just like kind of leave it out here, and you could just wait for the natural, or you could send it back in if you really wanted to. But otherwise, like for instance, I didn't look at shit in his base right there, nor should you. Realistically, like there was I looked at his base for about 1 second. But you could go back in the replay and then check it again in a replay when you have a lot more time to deduce off of your probe's vision. Like, did I send my probe in good spots to give me vision? And did I see anything that's relevant? Stuff like that. Because again, the goal for you would be making sure you have your build just flowing as it should be. And like, remember how you built the Nexus last game at 250? You started it at like 250? Yeah. And we were like, yeah,
42.
Exactly. And now we can build a battery. And then the sentry can always just throw another hallucinated phoenix at his base to be like, what is happening?
Oh, yeah.
And then I highly recommend too, you build pylons like this, the way I just built it around your base. After like your initial couple pylons that you need. Yeah, so you can just see like drops, so you can see like Reapers coming in or whatever. So like even though I don't build my main structures at that Reaper jumping spot, I still eventually build a pylon there. So I can just see.
For vision.
Exactly, for vision only. And now I have 3 units out before my work gets done. And
it's 350. Okay.
Yep. And now I'm about to go into 5 units. There we go. Now I got 5 units. Got an observer. We can go take our third now around 4:30, 4:20, 4:30. Make another pylon on like the top part of the natural, or the third base rather, so I can see if there's like another drop coming from the other angle on the all the way on the side. And now we can go into making a Colossus, and we can chrono boost it. And I didn't even look at that Sentry Scout again, the hallucination. But you can check it out in the replay. You could be like, what did I see? What was relevant? Like, what are these key things that I should be, like, keeping an eye on? But for now, just really work on getting the build down. And, like, making sure you can do the build properly. Because once you actually start learning what to read and what to scout, seriously, scouting takes you seconds. It doesn't take very long at all at that point. And then this will be how your games feel, literally. Your opponent will show up with some random fucking attack, and you will, if you're macroing efficiently, you'll just shut it down, essentially.
Stop it, right.
I'd be like, cool, well, I just killed that, and now I can move on and keep going. Okay, now our third base is getting underway, it's becoming really saturated. And remember how at 6 minutes, you were at like, I think it was like 60 supply or something?
Right.
We're at 100.
Like 100. And now we can, so we got a nice saturated third, so now we can throw down some tech. Like our Evo chamber, or not Evo chamber, our forges and our council. Forge.
And we're still just making Colossus Stalker. And now let's get ready to take our 4th base, because the whole game plan here is we're just being defensive and we're absorbing anyways. So we can take our 4th. And now that we're starting to get a bit more of a widespread base, we can do a bit of a pylon net around like our 3rd. Not much. Just throw down like a couple pylons, just because our army wants to relocate now. So it gives us a warning in case our 3rd's going to get attacked, essentially. And you can do this. You can do the same thing around your 4th too. We can put like a net on the bottom. That's like something like this, where now we have 3 pylons that can spot drops or move out strike right in my face.
Okay.
And then we could even put one more pylon like in the middle of the map in case he comes from that angle, which would be fine. Like here and there. And now we have this big fucking pylon net around our base that's just gonna really help spot everything.
Yeah, that gives great vision for sure.
And now we can go into like a Templar Archives, and you can use this for Archons, or you can use this for Storm or whatever. I would definitely say if you want to use any type of AoE, or like a Colossus and Storm are definitely go-tos. Those are super good, much stronger than Disruptor. For just getting comfortable using it, Disruptor is definitely awkward for initial use. Like it takes a while to really get good with the Disruptor.
Yeah, I've felt that too.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh my god, I'm trying to control this, and meantime the whole arm is getting killed.
Exactly. And now we have a good economy, and now like we've been constantly pumping out of that Robo, and we've been constantly pumping out of our 2 gates, so we have a nice army still. And our aim is to max around like 10 minutes. 10:30 was the thing I quoted you earlier. And now we have a nice saturated fourth, but now our money's gonna start going up because we're kind of done making all of our shit. So now we're just going up in gateway count. We're just kind of exploding it a bit more. So we just made like an extra like 6 gates, and we see like, oh, look at the pylons. There's his army. Let's go kill him. So it makes it super easy to just like get your army in a good spot before your probes and nexus start dying.
So this whole time, basically, you stayed in on two
gates.
Gateways, right?
Yep. And it's just and I was able to spend all my money because we were just constantly producing the whole time.
Yeah.
With probes, pylons, upgrades, Colossus, all this stuff. And now we have a nice, healthy Colossus count of like 5. 5's great. 5's definitely good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to making a couple of observers. We can make a few more Colossus. Or, sorry, a few more Stalkers. And I just started making a Stargate. So we're going to max out in just a second here. We can kind of boost our upgrades. Make a couple more Stalkers. Make a couple more gates for a second here. And we can take another base too because our bases are starting to mine out. So we can definitely expand again. And now you can see we're seconds from maxing out, right about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And our probe count is in the 80s, which is really nice. And then at this point, this is that moment where you could either send a Stalker or a Hallucinated Phoenix. Whatever the hell you want to do is fine. Where did he expand, and where should I be attacking? Like, what angle do I want to go for? And as soon as you find out where you want to go, you go. And behind this, you can make a Fleet Beacon. And you can make like an extra like 3 Stargates on top of, or like maybe 4 Stargates, whatever you want to do. Go to either 4 or 5 Stargates in total. So this is going to allow us to start making that Sky Toss transition. And now that we're going to start doing that, we can start going into Archon, Templar, Zealot, with Immortal if you really want to, or not, it doesn't matter. Or Colossus if you want to. Like Robo is optional, really. And then you can go into Carrier. Like you start replacing supply into Carrier. But you didn't max out until 14 minutes. Because that's just how the build goes if you overreact and you play inefficient. So the fact that you maxed at 10 minutes, if you can do this, a lot of your games will feel literally just like this. You'll get to their base and be like, wow, I just ran his ass over. Okay. Because if you can macro like this, you will not be Platinum anymore. And it's not impossible to do this. It just requires you to understand how to maintain production in your base. And that means taking things out of your build that distract the shit out of you. For now.
Yeah. And that's just part of building that muscle memory and habits.
Exactly.
That will catch you there, right?
Yep. And then when the game is over, and you go back into the replay, maybe you can do it right away if you really want to. That's totally fine. But like I said before, now you can go back into the game. In a future date or whatever, and be like, okay, I'm going to my vision, and I'm going to look and see what the fuck I saw, and what made sense about my opponent's build. Like, what was I looking for in their build, and what should I be expecting? Like, what things what things tip me off the information that I need to know? And then, you could, like, do it with your hallucinations as well.
What do you recommend for, I mean, I understand that APM, it's only relevant when you're actually doing something efficient with it, but eventually your speed should be able to increase, right? Are there any kind of exercises that you would recommend in order to work on that? Or should you just leave it where it'll eventually pick up a little bit more as time goes by and you get more?
The only exercise I could say that could increase your APM realistically would be if you ever find yourself always looking down at the keyboard and looking up and looking down at the keyboard and looking up, I would say maybe do typing exercises. Like just do like a type racer, like it's like a website just literally called Type Racer or something like that, just so you get familiar with where keys are on the keyboard, because you cannot look down at the keyboard and play fast, because you won't even look, like you're always looking away, looking back, looking away, looking back, looking away, And if you always do that, that's definitely not going to help you. So force yourself to like get in the habit of like learning where the keys are if that's anything you struggle with. Otherwise, if you feel comfortable about not having to always look at the keyboard, APM will come from not hesitating more so than doing finger exercises. Because APM realistically is, in my opinion, heavily in knowing what to do or what not to do. It's really a hesitation or not hesitation. So that just comes from experience. That comes from just having a plan and executing it 5,000 times to the point to where you just know it by heart by every time. And you don't ever have to think about what you're doing because you just have a game plan. That will make you play so much faster if you can do that. And like for instance, when I if you just experience is the big thing here, because if I play against an army, doesn't matter what race I am, if I'm Terran, Protoss, or Zerg, it doesn't matter what race my opponent is, Terran, Protoss, or Zerg. If I see a composition that they have and I see a composition that I have, there's like a trigger in my brain because I have so much experience that automatically happens where I go, I know how I want to micro this. I don't sit there when in a fight and be like scratch my chin and be like, how do I want to take this fight? Do I want to back up from this? Do I want to go forward into this? I just fucking go. I just do it, and then if I make a mistake and I'm like, well, that was a bad idea, I commit that to memory for the future. Yeah. You just make snap decisions. You just do it, and if it ends up being a mistake, try to like consume and absorb that, so you don't have to make the same mistake every single game. So maybe in the future, if attacking super aggressively was a bad idea, maybe next time you play a little bit more passive and like you kite or something like that. But like, and then once you start learning where you're going with your army a lot of time, or like with your actions of what you're doing, you'll be able to start doing these things much faster, and it won't feel like you play super as slow as you feel like you might be playing. One other thing I would say to do is always be in the habit of repeatedly checking for production. So if you notice, I maxed out at 10 minutes off of 2 gateways. That's only because I kept producing. I kept checking it a lot. I check it like every 5 seconds. It's just a habit. I don't check it once every 30 seconds or every minute. I check it all the time. Same thing with probes. I check it all the time. And I'm at a point with that where I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's just literally I just do it. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
All right, dude. Well, do you have any final questions before we wrap up?
No, I think that's good. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I mean, you gave me definitely a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And
Good
I'll
shit.
see how it goes after the holidays.
Nice, man. Well, definitely the last thing I would recommend you to do is 100% save this replay that I just gave you the example of. That way you don't lose it. And you can always use it as a future reference if you ever need like a refresher as to like how the build goes and shit like that. And then, just, dude, good luck. I'll have this posted as well on YouTube, and I'll send you a link to it as well in
Awesome.
in Discord. So you'll have a link by probably like tomorrow, so you can watch it again if you want to. And yeah, good luck, man.
Okay, thanks a lot, man. Have a happy holidays.
All right, happy holidays, man. Take it easy.
All right.
All right, see you,
Bye.
man. See you, man. All right, dude. Guys, that was a coaching lesson with John. Hell yeah, John. Thanks for doing a lesson, dude. Much love. Thank you guys also very much for watching it. I appreciate it. If you guys really enjoyed it, you made it all the way to the end, and you want more, if you want more and that wasn't enough for you, I have tons more coaching lessons out there. Definitely go check out more of the YouTube channel. I have coaching sections, coaching section. I have a bronze to GM section. I have replay analysis sections for StarCraft information. Lots of stuff you can learn from all of those. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I wish you the best of luck as well in your own games. And until next time, take it easy. Happy holidays, and see you soon. Peace, guys.